video. Minnesota was focused on stopping Ezekiel Elliott and held the running back to just 47 yards on the ground. The Cowboys offense relied heavily on Dak Prescott in the passing game to move the ball. Dak had nearly 400 yards along with 3 touchdowns, but down 4 with a minute and a half remaining, the Cowboys chose to run it twice from the Vikings 11, which resulted in a loss of 3 yards. On 4th down, Dak would throw an incomplete pass to Zeke. Dallas got the ball back with enough time for one Hail Mary attempt that resulted in Dak's lone interception of the game. And guys, Jerry Jones said he wouldn't second guess the play calling late in the game. So Greg, what was your biggest takeaway from this one?
Couple takeaways right out the gate. What was very alarming and noticeable was the offensive and defensive line just being dominated by the Minnesota Vikings.
Okay.
All game long in the run game. Specifically for the Minnesota Vikings, their offensive line just bullied the Dallas Cowboys defensive line. And then when you flip it on the other side, I just felt like the Dallas Cowboys, their O-line, they pass protected really well, but they showed no urgency when it came to run blocking. And when you pay these guys that much money, and I do not like talking about how much money you pay guys, but you got to give me more.
I agree.
When you look at what this team is built on and how what their identity is perceived to be and what they want to be a run-first team. And that just is not the case. And it puts me into this avenue of looking at Dak Prescott, who played a great game, a really good game, a good enough game to where that team should have won that game last night, but they didn't. When I look at Dak Prescott, and I said a few weeks, about a month or so ago now, that the Dallas Cowboys were still kind of questioning whether he's their guy. And I still think that and believe that to be the case. But I don't know why. When I look at what he's been able to do, I mean, you've said it. He's second in passing. He's second in average yards per pass. Like, we all talk about Dak Prescott, and we've talked about him in the post, in the past, of not being able to throw the ball downfield. He's second in yards.
Air distance.
Yes, in air distance. Right. And then he's third in yards per game passing. I mean, I get it. His interceptions are up there, tied for 4th in the NFL, which is high, but this is not a trend that I personally am concerned about because it's not been who he's been in the past. And so when I look at the Dallas Cowboys moving forward, Dak Prescott, and you said it earlier in the previous block, it's almost like this is all they have. This is almost all they have. And it's a credit to him, and it's unfortunate that he is going to be not judged solely by what he's doing this season from a statistical standpoint, but what they're not doing from a wins and losses. And if I'm Dak Prescott, I say, if you want to go down to the wins and losses, I still got you overall when it comes to wins and losses. I just don't like what I see with the Dallas Cowboys offensive defensive line.
Before I back up what you said or refute what you just said, anytime someone tells you, if someone asks you mad? No, I ain't mad. What are they? When Jerry says, I'm not second-guessing the play call and Skip, why would he having to broach that?
That's true. No, I'm fine.
He said, hey, thought we played a well of a game. The other team.
His point was it didn't work, so I'm not going to second-guess it because it's so second-guessable. Yeah, exactly. He was trying to bite his tongue.
Yeah, but which means he's...
Save himself from himself.
Which means that off camera, he's second-guessing himself.
You better believe he is.
I agree the defensive line from Minnesota won the battle. But at the end of the day, Skip tells me the quarterback is the most valuable player. He plays the most important position. And on 3 possessions, they got 0 points. Led by that guy that's leading the league in QBR, that's second in air distance. That was his quarterback. And for 3 straight drives, he got zip.
So let me just interject really quick. So now, is the standard to score every single... We know that's the standard, but is that...
That's what he told me about my homeboy.
Is that what has to happen now every time Dak has the ball?
No, but see, my thing is it about wins and losses or is it about QBR? Because I see, you know, when quarterbacks have high QBRs but they lose, it's about winning. All I'm saying is this. Kirk Cousins, and look, you've gone on the road and you know when you play in hostile environments, you want to minimize as many checks as you possibly can. You want to get up to the line of scrimmage, and whatever play we call in the huddle, we're going to run it. Now, the Dallas Cowboys do something that they do this probably more than any defensive line in football. They like to stun a lot, which means they like to cross their opponent's face. They're trying to get there in a hurry, and the Vikes use that against them. Okay, you want to go somewhere in a hurry? Okay, guess what? We're going to run these screens. We're going to run these boots. We're going to keep it short. We're going to keep... The mistake the Cowboys made, Skip, is that they let Cousins and the offense get out to a lead. So now I can relax him. I don't need him to push the ball down the field because I'm down Thielen. Hey, I dumped the ball down to Dalvin Cook. Dalvin, go get me 15. I can throw the ball to Irv Smith. Irv, go get me 8. I can throw the ball to Kyle Rudolph. He didn't have to get out of his comfort zone. So as long as you let Kurt stay in his comfort zone, right here, you know, Skip, stay right here in this area right here. I don't want you to move.
In that pocket.
I don't want you to move. I do not want you to move.
That's what I told you.
And they didn't make him move. Skip, at the end of the day, first cut, you know, we down south, what we call him, old Kim Folk Kirk. No, we call him old Kim Folk Kirk. He outplayed your guy. Because at the end of the day, Skip, it's about dubs. I don't care about QBR. I don't care about air distance. I don't care about completion percentage.
I do.
No.
And so does the rest of the league.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
No, they don't. Okay.
You look foolish saying
Let me ask, Skip, if you don't mind me asking.
My quarterback, even you said, I haven't ever seen him throw it better than he did last night. Greg Jennings has caught a whole lot of balls in this league. So have you. But Greg Jennings says, this guy can really play.
He can throw it, but if you don't mind me asking, who had the number 1 QBR last year? I can assure you he didn't win the Super Bowl. So you want dubs or you want the QBR, Skip? I took it off my menu because it wasn't a good seller.
Yeah.
It was too confusing. I didn't know if they wanted lettuce. I didn't know if they wanted sauerkraut. I didn't know what else it came. Yeah, too much goes into it, Skip. Too much.
I hear ya.
Yeah, I don't hear any of you. Number 1 in the league in QBR. He was on fire last night.
He was.
And I was the first to admit to you to start this show, I way overrated my defense. It's just not very good because the pass rush, as great as it can be on occasion, it comes and it mostly goes. And it's never consistently there when you need big rushes at big moments against first or second cousins or whatever he is.
Kim Folk Kirk.
That defense cannot stop a good running team's run. And we saw it out here in the Coliseum in the playoff game against the Rams last year when C.J. and Gurley just ran wild in the first half and into the third quarter. And I have little to no run game this year because, again, against the Giants, Zeke said, I've never had bigger holes in my career to run through. And yet I can't find 21 anymore. He doesn't have a burst. He doesn't have any suddenness. He doesn't have any make you miss. He can just sort of hammer it up inside and just battering ram it for 3 or 4 yards, but there's no breakaway to him at all. And Collinsworth said something later in the game last night where there was one hole that it looked like Zeke had where he could make 8 yards. Remember, their long run of the whole night was by Tavon, 7 yards on a reverse.
Right.
And Chris Collinsworth said it's like he's lost his confidence, like there was a hole there and he just hesitated, like, should I run through this hole? This guy, we saw at The Ohio State University, especially his second to last year, he ran wild on America all the way through the playoffs, all the way through Alabama and Oregon, and I can't find him anymore. Last night, it looked like he was running in the Cabo sand. That's what it looked like because he couldn't even get out of the blocks. And you're right, they're getting whipped at the line of scrimmage. But the truth about this team is it just goes as the quarterback goes. And the reason he has led the league in his first 3 years in game-winning drives is he camouflaged all the flaws. He kept rising above all the issues this team has and bringing them back and back and back more than anybody brought his team back. This kid brought his team back to a lot of wins. And he's second in wins to that guy up in Foxborough over his first 3 years. And now, last night was the classic case of they dug a hole that nobody could dig out of against the Vikings because that defense is really good. I don't care what you say. The front's good. Harrison Smith is good. The linebackers are really good. They're smart. They're well coached. And they come after you. And they disguise well. And all their blitz disguise, it was stunning to watch. And my quarterback was spotted a 14-0 lead and said, no, I'm not going to quit. I'm going to fight you. And I'm going to bring you back. And he got it to 14-0, and then they let Kirk Cousins get away with some duck pass that set up a field goal at the end of the half, so it's 17-14. And then here he comes again. And now we get to the final drive of the game, the big one, and he is out of his mind and completes for 10 yards, 13 yards, 28 and 8. He drives them from their 6-yard line all the way to the Vikings' 11-yard line. And now it's 2nd and 2 from the 11. And I'll give you one try, just one try with Zeke, who had gone nowhere slowly the whole night. But he's gotten so many of those 3rd and 2s for this team over the last 3 years where he's just run through the brick wall on 3rd and 2. And they tried it, and it failed miserably and predictably. And now I got big issues because on 3rd and 2, they go back to a shotgun give on the inside handoff where he tries to cut it to the left and up. And it goes backwards. And that's the play where the quarterback has to have the ball in his hands because he's your playmaker. He always has been.
He is.
Guess how many called runs he had last night? 0. He can really run quarterback draws, as we saw against Seattle in the playoff game. He can really run the zone read. Not one time did he have a zone read keeper last night. And on that play, that 3rd and 2, I wanted to see him keep the ball. I wanted to see a bootleg where you have an RPO. You know, you can either run it or toss it to Jason Witten. I wanted to see something creative.
I'm just trying to figure out how can the guy with the best QBR, now Russell Wilson is 2nd, his team is 7 and 2. Lamar Jackson is 4th. His team is 7 and 2. How can the guy with the best record, and I ask you, talent for talent, player for player, who has the better talent? Baltimore Ravens, Seattle Seahawks, or the Dallas Cowboys?
All those 2 you named, they're much better. This team's way overrated. The defense is way overrated.
Both teams are better coached.
Yeah, they're
on
much
both
better
sides
coached.
of the ball.
So then what happens? So we get to 4th down, and Dak wants to go fast and call his own play.
Right.
And I believe he would have converted 4th and 5. But no, Mike Zimmer calls time. And it requires Dak to trudge over to the sideline, and Jason Garrett gets involved. And I promise you, Jason Garrett called that play. He's a play caller by his nature. By nature, yeah. Like it's what he's always done his whole life. And what happens? They call the primary receiver, the play that was called, and Jason Garrett had the audacity to say it was an RPO. There's no RPO.
What you trying to say,
play.
Skip? What you trying to say?
Well, I'm just saying it was just a pass to Zeke in the flat to the guy who can't separate. And he couldn't separate from Eric. Well, could he? Did he separate? And was it a good throw? It was a really good throw, but Eric Kendrick's all over it.
He made a great point.
Yeah.
But to your point, Skip, they haven't been able to run the ball. Ezekiel Elliott has looked different, but when they need to run it, they just haven't. When you get 24 first downs and you have 0 by way of rushing.
0
by way of rushing.
Thank you.
And this is who we are. This is our identity. Something's wrong.
All I'm saying is this. When they was winning, Jason Garrett got no credit. Now they losing, they blame Jason Garrett.
No, he gets no credit anyway.
Okay, so he should.
Very true.
Should he get any blame then? If you don't give me any credit, why should I get blamed?
Okay, help me out. When your quarterback's on fire, when he's leading the whole league in QBR, when he's converted 9 third downs with long passes, why would you take the ball out of his hands on 2nd, 3rd, and 4th down?
Well,
where you take the ball, you don't let him do what he wants to do.
Well, we left him.
Why would you do that?
Skip, when you throwing all them picks, hold on, didn't you say he was 4th in the league in picks? So what? So is that Jason Garrett's fault too?
2 of them were Hail Mary.
No, I don't know that.
Yeah.
But see, he want to talk about the Hail Marys. But if he throws a touchdown, does he get credit for a touchdown, Greg? If he
does get credit for the touchdown.
Oh, so
We are
that's a
not done
pass you
talking
should have
about this,
completed. Is that
guys.
what you're
Yeah,
saying?
Aaron Rodgers does it all the time.
We have so much more to get to, and I feel like we gotta go deeper in the play calling. Greg, thank you for joining us
Absolutely.
for your insight. Let's discuss if the play calling was the